I made a lovely knit dress and I was able to wear it around the house for my 19th wedding anniversary. I'm going to show you the pattern and how to sew this bodice. Super lovely, a bit of a square neckline going on, but not what you expect. Just a little flash of my print. Hi sewing friends, I'm Karina from liftingpinsandneedles.com. Welcome to this channel that is all about sewing, limitless sewing, and today I've got a really special dress to share with you. It's a new pattern released from Sinclair Patterns. It was actually released yesterday on Thursday, but I wasn't able to have the video ready on time. I've had quite a hard week. Today I'm feeling much better, and it's also helping that spring is sort of wanting to come here a little early, and it's so gorgeous out here. Before I chat to you about this lovely dress, I'll just show you what I'm wearing, and I feel so good like this. I'm on my balcony. This is my bedroom right there. I rarely film here, but felt like it today. And I've got my azalea top, the black one I just made a few days ago, with my knit Clio culottes and just some flat sandals. Feels so fresh, so good. I love this outfit. I would make 10 outfits like this and wear them all the time. It's just so comfortable and so nice. I always forget to tell you what I'm wearing, but I've remembered now and I'm really excited about this outfit. I feel amazing in it. Hope you enjoyed seeing that. But let's get back to the violet dress. The violet dress is a new release from Sinclair Patterns. It's so lovely. As soon as I saw the line out, I love this bodice. What you see first is sort of like a square neckline, not that low, and there is a center front area there that is ruched. It's not actually gathered. That effect is created by little pleats on each side, 7 pleats on each side, and then you have these side panels here. And then the back is just normal, just a back that's cut on the fold. The way that this dress is put together is so clever. All the front is totally lined. So what you see on the inside is super clean, and it's a really easy way to put this square neckline together. Better than bands or facings or anything like that. It's really fun to put together. What goes below the bodice can be the length that you prefer. So you can have a shorter piece attached onto the bodice, and you can have it as a top, a tunic, a dress above the knee, midi, maxi, any length that you like. On the pattern piece, you only print out a certain length, and that's done that way to save on paper, on the amount of paper that you print. So after that length, depending if you want a midi, a maxi, a short skirt, there is an amount that's suggested for you to add to that pattern piece to create the length that you want. I always want mine above the knee, of course. That's the length that makes me feel great. And as for sleeves, there is a sleeveless cut line there. There's a binding piece there for you to put on there if that's what you want. And that's what I've done. I've done a sleeveless one. Or you can do a short sleeve, 3/4 length, full length. When you look at the pattern piece for the sleeve, where you see the cut lines for the different lengths, you'll see these little triangles poking out at the sides, and I love that because it means that the hem has been trued for each of these lengths. So if you just want a full length sleeve, you just have to fold those little triangles away. The final width of this bodice there has been designed and drafted to be able to be matched with the Valley add-on skirts. I sewed the Valley skater dress last year in May, and I've shown you how to sew that bodice. There's a really cute skirt there with pleats. It's a semi-full skirt with pleats. I love that. I really like that skirt. And then another pattern was created to be mashed onto that bodice, and there's so many skirt options there. Mainly half and full skirt options with flounces, handkerchief type of hems, really pretty skirts. I don't usually go for full skirts like that, just because of the amount of fabric that it takes to make them. It is an issue for me, the fabric consumption, but I know it's not an issue for most people. So if you like fuller skirts with lovely flounces, you can look at that add-on pattern, and all those types of skirts can also be matched onto the bodice of the violet dress. Otherwise, you can just sew the gathered skirt that comes with this pattern. It's a gathered skirt at the waist, but it's not a full skirt. It's not a lot of gathers. There's not going to be a lot of volume there at your abdomen at all. It's going to be very nice. Of course, there's optional side seam pockets that you can sew on. These are the types of inseam pockets that are anchored at the waist seam, so they don't move anywhere. They don't just dangle from your hips. I've done a video tutorial where I show you how to sew these types of pockets. I wouldn't change the technique, whether it's for a knit dress or for a woven dress. I just rarely choose to sew pockets on things, but I do have a tutorial about it if you want to check it out. You need light to medium weight fabrics that stretch about 30% horizontally, and you need also a bit of vertical stretch, 20%. You do need knit fabrics for this dress. You cannot make this with a woven fabric. I'm making a point to mention this whenever I share with you a garment designed for knit fabrics. I always get a question in there saying, can I make this with a woven? And I'm just saying you can't. The dress is fitted, it's meant to be fitted at the shoulders and the bust. There's a bit of negative ease at the bust, so you can definitely not make this with a woven fabric. If you made the sleeves with a woven fabric, you would not be able to move your arms. It's just not a design for woven fabrics. You need the stretch of a knit. Good fabrics could be cotton lycra. I would be careful about the weight of the cotton lycra and the way it feels, because it can get a little bulky there on the skirt area. So just have a look to see if it's got a little bit of drape. Cotton, spandex, bamboo spandex, modal spandex, or lycra. All those are perfect. ITY, single brush poly, double brush poly. I think they're going to work really, really well. Maybe some lightweight athletic knits. I have used those in the past to make dresses and they always work out amazing. In my case, I chose an ITY knit with a really obnoxious print. It's got a red background with lots of bright colors and flowers. This is the type of fabric that always gives me triple the happiness. Triple because one of them is when I buy it, the second time when I sew it, and the third time, all the times I'm gonna wear it. Just makes me smile. Might be a little bit out there, a bit loud for some of you, but for me, it's just the most beautiful fabric. I mentioned that the front of the bodice is lined, so you can use the same fabric that you're using for your dress, so you can self-line, or you can use a light tricot fabric. Just make sure it stretches the same amount as your main fabric. Now, because I'm using ITY and it's just common practice for me, I've decided to line the back as well. So the dress that you'll see has a bodice that is fully lined, both front and back. That is just my preference. You can sew it with just the front lined as well. Because the violet dress is a new pattern release, you know that it's going to have a little discount for the first week, 20% off. So if you like the style, you think it's a dress you want to have, it's always nice to get it for a little bit less. Also on the website, you can see the pattern listing and see a lot of the tester photos there. So you can get ideas of fabric choices and things. Different sizes, everyone that's made it looks amazing. I will also leave you my affiliate link down below in the description box. If you purchase your pattern using my affiliate link, it doesn't cost you any extra. It just means that part of that sale comes back to me as a commission, and that supports the work that I do here on YouTube by making all these tutorials for you. If you do use it, I'm very grateful. You'll find sizes 0 to 30 US. You know that Sinclair Patterns also has height files. So choose your file based on your height, whether you're petite, regular or tall. You can see a diagram there of the heights. For me, the tall file is perfect. I never have to make length adjustments, if any adjustments at all. It's just been almost a perfect fit for me every time. I've chosen a size 16 with a tall file. I mentioned that the shoulders and bust were meant to be fitted. So you have negative ease at the bust, 1 5/8 of an inch. That means that this area of the garment is slightly smaller than your body, but that is perfectly fine because your fabric will stretch to fit. At the waist, you have a bit of negative ease, about 3/4 of an inch, less than an inch. So it'll be nicely fitted, but not tight at all. And then because you have a gathered skirt, you have plenty of ease at the hips. I made a muslin and I made it using same fabrics you've been seeing recently in a few videos. Horrible jersey fabrics that are horrible to touch, but they have the correct stretch and properties to work as muslins really, really well. And I'll show you a picture. I wanted to check that the armhole was going to be good because I wanted to make mine sleeveless, and also that the bodice height was going to be at my actual waist, although my confidence was super high that it was going to be good because I was sewing the tall file. And I've had great experiences with the bodices in the past from this brand, but I still wanted to check before cutting into my fabric. I also took the opportunity to film all the sewing of this bodice for you using these fabrics in different colors. So you'll see how to sew this bodice completely as per the instructions, with exception to the very last part, and I'm showing you an extra step of how you can enclose the side seams as well. So it'll be really, really easy for you to see how to put it together. So let's see.
This is starting to wear on me. You've been raining down like hail. I'm weak.
These are the pattern pieces that you need for the bodice. I've got them cut out in different colors just to show the construction a little easier. Now this blue piece that has these little jagged edges there is the center front, and this will be the panel that has lots of pleats there and it will look ruched. And these two that you see on the sides will be the side panels. Now the whole bodice on the front will be lined. That's why we have this long piece that will have the pleats, and then we have another smaller piece that doesn't have all the pleats and the details, and that is the piece that will go inside behind that. These two are 2 layers, so you've cut 2 pairs mirrored. As you can see there, I've got one there, and another pair over there. When we put this together, it will enclose that center seam there. It will be super neat inside. And over there we have a simple back bodice piece. It is cut on the fold, but because I wanted it to fit onto this jersey, I will have a center back seam on this demonstration, but you can ignore it because it's not there in the pattern. That little piece up there will be the binding that will finish the back neckline. The front neckline here will be finished with the lining piece right there. So that little binding will just be done on that back small piece. On these side front pieces, you can see this long edge. This is the long edge that's going to match to the center front ruched panel, and there's a little notch there that marks where this neckline is going to be. From a little below that notch up to the top edge, on the lining piece, you can use a little strip of interfacing there to stabilize it, and that'll keep the neckline from stretching down vertically. I would do that, but because this is a fake garment, I'm not doing it. But just make sure that you check your fabric. If it stretches vertically too much, you definitely need to fuse a little strip of interfacing on this long edge a little below that notch. This is how the center front panel looks like. Now don't make a mistake and make sure that the wider one here is the top. This is going to be the neckline, and the narrower bit is going to be at the waist. Make sure you get that right. And then on the edge you have these jagged edges that are the shape that needs to be here so that these pleats are trued. Okay, here's the top. You can see a series of notches that are in pairs, there, all the way down, and you'll find 7 of those, which means there's going to be 7 pleats along the edge. And you can see that there's a longer mark and a shorter one, a longer one and a shorter one. I'll put some R's there. It signifies this is the right side of the fabric. You bring the long dash down to meet the smaller one like this. The bulk of the pleat is going to be facing down towards the waist. Remember, up the top here is the neckline. What you don't want to do is take the short line to meet the long one. So you don't want this, because then the bulk would be going up. You want all these bulks to be going down like this. So you can do this pretty quickly. Just meet one line to the other, all the way down, up to there. There's the last one, and then repeat on the other side. Okay, this is how the center front panel is going to look after all the pleats have been folded, or the bulk of the pleats are going down towards the waist, which is the narrower section, and this wider one is the neckline. Now you need to bring your lining piece and put these right sides together here and match it up at the neckline, right there. So you can see the R's there that mark right side to right side here. And now on this long sort of curved edge, we need to sew this together at 1/4 inch seam allowance. Now you can do this step of sewing these two together before pinning the pleats, but I prefer to pin the pleats just having that one piece there, so I wouldn't have this other piece dangling from it. Either way will work. And now on the top we need to sew this with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. I'm also sewing this with my 1/4 inch presser foot to keep it nice and neat, and I have a shallow zigzag stitch that looks like a straight stitch, but it will allow some stretch. I'm going to flip this so that I have the main piece on top and the lining on the bottom. Within the seam allowance there, I'm going to sew a piece of clear elastic with a zigzag stitch. I don't want the clear elastic to go further this way than where the seam is. You can see it's going to be right there on the edge, so I'll make sure I get that right. You can also use a regular elastic. It just has to be narrow, and you don't need to stretch it as you sew it. It needs to be the same length that the neckline has on the top. This will just keep the neckline from flopping and stretching out. Now it is recommended in the pattern that you don't use a serger for this because it might make the neckline super bulky. Okay, that's how that looks like on the top. Now I'm just going to flip this so that I have the wrong sides together, and this is going to be on the inside. You can see it's plain, it has no ruching. And on the outside it's going to look like that. And now I'm just going to match the sides here. They should be the same length. I have already got the pleats right there, and I just need to match these sides up and baste them together so that this will act as one piece. I'm going to be using the same pin I've used to pin my pleats, to pin it to the back, and you can see that there's a dot there where these pleats should match right there. So just make sure to match everything up. Now I'm just going to sew all these layers right on the edge, smaller than a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And I'm using a long stitch length. This won't be a seam that will be seen anywhere. It just needs to hold these two layers together and fix those pleats in place. Now on this other side, I've pinned it from the side of the lining because I want to sew with the bulk of the pleats going down. I don't want to be sewing on this side and sewing against the direction of the pleats. That's always a big mess when I've ever tried to do that. Literally the same thing, I'm just sewing from the other side. This bottom bit of the bodice that will be at the waist, you can also baste it together at this point. Okay, I've given it a nice press. This is how the neckline on top is going to look, and the elastic inside keeps it really stable. I've pressed just the edges of the pleats. I didn't want to press the middle there because this is going to lie completely different once it's on the body. Okay, remember we had these side panels here, 2 pairs mirrored. We have the side seams here and the armholes on the side, and then we have this longer piece there meeting this one. So now we need to unite these to these, and they will be enclosed. We'll be doing one each, so I'll put these aside. All you need to do now is take this one that you have right sides up and put it right sides together with that, meeting the bottom edges, so like this. And on the other side, it's the same. You're going to take this one, you're going to take the one that goes on the back right side, touching the lining right there. And that's how you're going to have 2 layers of the side panel with the ruched center panel in the middle. And now we just need to pin these. Okay, that's pinned. Now on this area of the neckline, you will find the notch right there, a mark. I've got them on both sides, and that's where the center front panel is going to reach. So it's really easy to just put this together. Remember, I have right sides together with the main piece on the front, and the lining inside, right sides together with the lining right there. So that's on one side, and I'm just going to do the same with the other. I'm going to flip that out of the way and do the same thing over here. Have the side seam and the armhole be away from here. This long seam is what is going to meet there. Bring this one right sides together with the center front ruched panel. Up here, find that notch and have it meet the edge here of the center front. Now bring this one on top like this. Right side of lining to the lining inside. Also meet this edge here. They are identical pieces. And then just pin all the way down to the bottom edge. So I've pinned that. Now we have 2 seams to sew. You can sew it on the sewing machine or on the serger. I'm going to do mine with the sewing machine. Always use 1/4 inch, and I'm going to be using a shallow zigzag from here to the bottom there, and then the same on this other seam. Okay, so this is the front bodice sewn. This is the right side. It looks really pretty. I love this in the center. And this has finished this neckline here. When you put it on, it will look like a type of square neckline. And you can see how clean it is finished everywhere. So nice. This is the right side of my back piece, the neckline. And I've just folded my binding piece in half lengthwise, wrong sides together in there. And I've just matched it along the top. It's pretty much the same length. You don't need to stretch the binding to fit or anything like that. I'm going to sew this with 1/4 inch seam allowance. I'm using a shallow zigzag. I'm using my 1/4 inch press foot to keep it neatly. After sewing this, I'm going to understitch. I'm going to bring the seam allowance underneath the binding, and I'm using my blind hem foot that I use for edge stitching. I move the needle to the left, and it's a really nice way to do it neatly. That's how that looks, and now I can flip it to the inside and do the final step, which is top stitching that down. This is how the binding is going to look inside and how the neckline is going to look on the outside. Now you're going to have 2 layers here on the side panels, and the 2 layers here makes the front bodice fully lined. We have 2 layers here on the shoulder seams. Now this is the back. We had already finished this neckline here, and I'm going to put it right sides together with the bodice. This is the right side of the bodice. Align it here at the shoulder seams right there. Make sure this edge meets this edge of the seam and extend this. This other shoulder edge that is inside on the lining is going to come around and wrap this one around here. So we're going to have 2 shoulder seams sandwiching the shoulder seam from the back like that. It'll look twisted, but it'll be fine afterwards. I'll pin this carefully and sew it. Same with this other side. I'm going to meet this one right sides together right there. Make sure the bound edge meets that seam there. Bring this other shoulder, wrap it around like that. Okay, I've got these shoulder seams pinned, and now I'm just going to sew them. You can do this on the serger as well, but I find I'm more accurate here on the sewing machine in this case. This little pointy bit here where the binding is inside and everything is quite bulky. I'm going to trim away some of that bulk right here. And now I can flip this. And you can see that the back is coming from within those two shoulder seams. And on the inside it's neat as well. Okay, so we have the bodice done. Here's the back, here's the front. This is all right sides up. Ignore that center back seam. This is just for my muslin. You won't find that on the pattern. If you want to sew sleeves to your bodice and you want to sew them in on the flat, then having it open like that, you would align your sleeves and sew in your sleeves on the flat. Once you have that sewn, then you would put these right sides together. You would have a sleeve here and you would sew the side seams, including the long seam of the sleeve there. The armhole would be already attached. Now I'm making one that's sleeveless. Even if I were putting sleeves in, I would do them on the round. It's just my preference. In that case, there is a way that you can enclose this side seam right here. One easy way to finish this is to just sew these 3 layers together, serge it, and then you would finish your side seam. Another way involves a little bit of a twist going on, but it will enclose the side seam. And it's always possible to do that when you have 3 layers. So leaving it like this, having the right side of the fabric with the right side of the bodice. If you look at this like that, you have the first layer, the second layer, and the third layer. I'm going to take the second and the third layer and just pin them here. Then I'm going to take this first layer, and it's going to look really messy, and just flip this like this. I have this first layer here, right side with the wrong side of the back bodice, and it's going to be really twisted. It's going to look like this. So now that I have these 3 layers like that, I'm going to pin. This is why I did them in different colors. You can see the green layers, both of them sandwiching the blue layer, which is the back bodice. That means I'm enclosing that back within the 2 fronts that I have, the main and the lining. So this is how this is going to look. Now I'm going to flip it so you can see. This is the right side of the bodice. When you open it up, the side seam is also going to be enclosed, so there won't be any edges or serged edges or raw edges or nothing like that. And I'll go ahead and sew this seam. I'll be using my sewing machine again. So I'll go ahead and sew that, and then I'll show you how to do the other side, which is the same thing basically. Okay, I've just sewn that seam quickly, 3 layers, and now I can just flip this, and my side seam is enclosed on the wrong side of the bodice and on the right side of the bodice, so it's going to look super neat. Now again on the other side seam, remember layer number 1, layer number 2, layer number 3. I'm going to pin layers 2 and 3 right sides together here. Remember, I have the wrong side of the bodice facing up. Put a few pins to hold it like that. And now I'm going to take this first layer and bring it over here like this, so that this first layer now is flipped towards the back, and this is touching the right side of this first layer to the wrong side of the back bodice like that. Whenever I see 3 layers on a side seam or anything, I know that this can be done. It will be done a little differently depending on the style of the bodice, but it can always be done. Sometimes a little fiddlier than others. In this case, a little fiddlier. But it's so worth it because inside it's going to feel so nice when you wear it. There you go. I'll just go ahead and sew that. This is the right side of my bodice. I have 2 layers here on the front armhole and just 1 layer on the back. At this point, if you want to enclose the side seams like I have, then you would set in your sleeve on the round. Or if you're doing sleeveless, you would do your binding there. And then over here at the bottom, you would just attach on your gathered skirt. But basically all the special areas have been done. Super fun to put together. And this is how the wrong side of the bodice would look. It's also very neat. Every single seam is enclosed. There is a side seam enclosed as well. Shoulder seams are enclosed. The back binding, very neat. I hope that was easy for you to see how to put it together. You see, it's not as hard as it looks. It is pretty simple and pretty fast actually, and really fun as well. Something different, a design that's for knits, that it doesn't have a neckband. It's just totally different. I really enjoyed that. This is my beautiful dress. When I find that knit fabric has a red background in a red tone that I like, I snatch it up immediately. I especially love these turquoise, like teal There's two tones, a darker teal and like a lighter turquoise. I love that. Oh my gosh, I have a handbag that color. I also have shoes that color, but that's beside the point. It's got a lot of colors in here. And if I had to take one of these colors away from this print, it would be the pink. I had my doubts when I saw it. I'm like, oh, I don't like the pink in there. But I looked at it from far away, draped it over myself and thought, I think the red and the teal stand out more than the pink. So I'm deciding to like pretend the pink is not there. But otherwise, I love the print. It's so summery. You know, I'm on the southern hemisphere. Hot weather's coming. Spring is just around the corner. And this just makes me smile. Love it. So here is the bodice seam right there. This is the center front panel. So it's narrower here and it goes up wider here on the neckline. Look, you can't see very well because my back is also lined, and I'll show you that in a second. But here we have all those little pleats and the little ruched area in the center front and the side panels here that come up to right there. You'll be able to see this better when I have it on myself. I have my 2 layers of bodice there with my binding tucked away. I used another fabric for my lining. Look, I had 2 layers of ITY here, and I wanted to use a light material for the binding so it wouldn't be too bulky. And the way I sewed my binding is that I serged the edge there, folded it in, understitched, and then top stitched. So the edge inside isn't folded like I would do sometimes when I have a single layer on the top that I'm binding. So that's just an adaptation I do according to what I'm putting the binding to. And I have 2 layers here on the bodice front, which would be how the original pattern is. But I also have a second layer at the back. There I have my gathered skirt. Look, the gathers aren't much at all. It was very easy to gather in. So on the round. I turn this inside out so you can see. I love showing you the inside as well so you can see. Now there you can see I have a single layer for the skirt, of course, and that's where the bodice attaches to the skirt. Now after serging this together in the instructions, it says there that you need a piece of narrow elastic that is about 2 inches smaller than your waist, than the measurement around here. You can stretch that to fit there and it'll bring the waist in a little bit. Now I would do that if there was a way that I could enclose that elastic into a casing, but I think that's a little bit too bulky. So for me, having an elastic directly on my skin right there is really irritating, and in the past I can feel the elastic there and it's like cutting into my skin and I just can't do it. So I didn't do that with this dress, although it's part of the instructions. I decided not to do it. It's just, I can't. Whenever I do have a dress that has an elastic at the waist, I always sew it in a way that there's a casing and the elastic is hidden in there. But because I have my bodice in a double layer, I think that would have been just too bulky to do it that way. And the waist is nice and fitted. I like it like it is. I wouldn't want it to be any tighter than that. But I thought I'd mention that that was part of the pattern as well. Now I have a lined back bodice right here, and I have enclosed side seams. So I made a tiny adaptation to the way I showed you the tutorial, which is how you're supposed to sew the dress in a single layer at the back. But I'm going to show you now in just a few minutes the only change I made to be able to line the bodice completely. If you want to try that. If you've never lined a knit bodice when you're working with lightweight knits, you should try it once and see how nice it feels on, and you're going to be addicted to lining them. I am. I try not to. I think I won't do it this time, and then I just end up doing it anyway.
Time flashed by and I woke up on the other side of the moon. The sun don't rise, all the light is gone from me and you.
To make a fully lined bodice, I did exactly the same thing for the front that you've already seen me do. Nothing has changed here for the front, so I've got that ready. But for the back, I'm doing it different because I have 2 layers for the back here. I'm using self fabric, so I've just got them right sides together. And I did the same thing that I did for the front neckline. I just sewed them together at 1/4 inch and then zigzagged on clear elastic just within the seam allowance. So you see the edge of the elastic is right at the edge of my seam right there. And I've got that ready to go right there. What I have here looks really weird, but basically I have the front shoulders there. I've got them extended because I have 2 pieces, the main and the lining, and I've done the same with the back here. So this is the back neckline there that I've just sewn, and I've met the shoulder seams here. So it's going to be one straight seam with that seam right there. They both should match. So that's on one side, and here is the other side. the back shoulder seams meeting the front shoulder seams, but both of them, the main and the lining, and I'll just sew these in one go. Here I'm making sure that these neckline seams are in opposite directions, so one going that way, one going this way. What this does now is sew both the shoulder seams for the front and the lining in one go. This is the front, this is the back, the neckline comes from here, and we still have raw armholes there. So that's what that achieves right there. And it's just a different method just because I'm going to line the whole bodice, you know, including the back. The original dress only has the front lined. So now I just have to sew this other shoulder seam as well. After sewing those shoulder seams and everything, all that I'm going to do now is sew the side seams for both. So I've got them pinned in separate layers. What you see on the outside is the outside layer. So I've got my side seam pinned in there. When I flip this around, this is the wrong side of the bodice. This center doesn't have the ruching, and my lining has also been pinned right sides together there. So I've got 4 sets of side seams to sew, and it'll be all neat in the inside. Now I've got raw edges of the armholes. My armhole have 2 layers, and I'm going to attach the binding onto that. And that's it. That's how I'm going to finish my bodice, and then gather the skirt and sew it onto there. Down the bottom, the skirt is very simple. It's just 2 pieces cut on the fold. There's only side seams and a hem that's pressed up and twin needled. This is my violet dress in an ITY. I love this obnoxious print. It's a red background print is gold for me. I love this red. I feel absolutely amazing in anything red. Up closer you can see the bodice. It hits exactly at my waist right there. Here's the center front panel that is ruched, and then the sides, and then a skirt that is gathered but not that much, just drapes over your tummy. Very nice. It's not that a lot of volume at all. Front part all fully lined and not the back, but because this is lightweight knit, I lined my back piece as well, and I love doing that with lightweight knit. It feels amazing on, and I feel I'm more supported at the back as well. Here you can see this neckline. It's so beautiful. It looks sort of like a square neckline. This center panel is separate and these side panels are separate, and they enclose this right there, making it really clean. I like the depth and the width here. It's not showing my bra, I'm not showing cleavage or anything, and it's really nice and close to the chest because there's elastic in here holding it together. The bodice is fully lined. This is sleeveless, and I've got binding inside. Here's a closer look at this ruched panel. It's so lovely. It's just the top layer that's got the tiny pleats along here. The lining piece underneath doesn't, so it doesn't create the bulk, but it just makes it look extra pretty here in the center. There's 7 little pleats on each side, super easy to put together. You can mash on to this bodice other skirt. There is an add-on pack that goes with the Valley skater dress bodice. Those can fit this one as well, but I've got the original skirt from the dress, which is just gathered, but it's not a really full skirt, and I really like it like that. Extremely happy with my violet dress. I know it's one I want to make again. You can always make it with long sleeves if you want it for colder weather, but my weather is heating up and this is just right. Great pattern. I love these projects that are for knits but are totally different, use different techniques and have a different look.
Dance with me.
I had grand plans to make a really nice special occasion dress. Although I rarely have occasions to wear these dresses, I don't really care. I just like making them and having them there. and knowing that if I have to go somewhere at any time, I can just pull something out that's already made and pretty and comfortable. So I have a few of those dresses in my wardrobe, and I mean, sewing is not just about making the practical things, you know. Yeah, that's always amazing, filling the gaps in your wardrobe, but I also like making things that just make me happy. And I had grand plans to make one of those, but as I mentioned in the beginning of the video, it's been a horrible week for me. I had to really power through to get this dress done, like do it as slowly as I could, and I just was feeling horrible. But anyway, I'm feeling better now, and I've got the fabrics here to show you and sort of tell you what my plan was. Maybe I can give you some extra inspiration. So a couple of years ago, my husband bought me several yards of this stretch lace. He knows I like it, and he knows I like, you know, black stretch lace. So it's really pretty. I've used it for other projects, for sleeves, for details. I'm trying to get the most out of it, and I still have a pretty good piece here. So what I want to do is use this stretch lace for that center front panel that has the pleats. That would be what you see on the outside, to have the lace in the middle of the bodice. And then for the lining, I would use my main fabric. I would also want to do the long sleeves or short sleeves, maybe elbow length sleeves. I think those look good as well, with this lace, and sew it onto the bodice. I love a little black dress, and if I had 20 of them in my wardrobe, I would be happy because I just love them. I have this really good quality ITY that's super drapey, stretchy. It would be perfect for it. So it would be made out of this, the bodice, all those things. The lining inside would be with the same, and then I would have this lace on top like that, just in the middle of that ruched area. And for the sleeves, I think it would look really pretty. I can just see it in my head, and I hope I can get around to making it just for fun, just for myself, just because I want to have it, not because I have somewhere to wear it to, which is besides the point, because I also sew to make myself happy, not just because I need specific things that I need to wear, you know? Maybe you understand what I'm talking about. Maybe you think I'm talking a bunch of nonsense. Everyone has their own views and reasons why they like to sew. I know that. And for me, it's about making things that are practical, of course. Like this outfit I've just shown you. I would wear this 10,000 times. Super wearable, super pretty, well-fitting, lovely fabrics. That's amazing. But it's also amazing to sew something pretty that you just want to sew because you just want to have it. Nothing wrong with that. Don't forget that the violet dress is 20% off for the first week. I will leave you all the links down in the description box of this video, my affiliate link if you would like to use it, and I will see you again with more sewing very soon. Bye.